Welcome to Pennywise Books, where we turn timeless books into rich, engaging conversations that feed your mind. If you've ever wished for full book value with zero reading, you're exactly where you need to be. Settle in. Today's book might just unlock a new way of seeing money. And if you find this useful, insightful, or even just a little inspiring, go ahead and subscribe. It helps more curious minds find us too. Let's dive in.
Two dads, two radically different money mindsets. Which path are you charting for your financial future? Today, we're taking a shortcut to becoming, well, truly financially well-informed. We're diving deep into Robert T. Kiyosaki and Sharon L. Lecter's groundbreaking book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this isn't just, another finance book. It's really an invitation to challenge much of what we've maybe been taught about money and the pursuit of success.
Yeah, what's so compelling about this book, I think, is its origin story. Robert Kiyosaki was shaped by these two starkly contrasting father figures. You had his biological father, the poor dad, who was highly educated, an academic. And then there was his best friend, Mike's father, the rich dad, who, believe it or not, never even finished 8th grade.
Wow, that's quite a contrast.
It really is. And this difference, it offers this unique lens to view money, education, and ultimately how to achieve genuine financial freedom.
Yeah.
So today we'll explore their opposing advice, the book's core lessons, and unpack some truly practical takeaways that you can actually apply.
That's a fascinating starting point, the idea of these two mentors. Before we really immerse ourselves in their philosophies, maybe let's get to know the authors a bit. Starting with Robert Kiyosaki. He was born and raised in Hawaii, a fourth-generation Japanese-American, and his own father, the so-called poor dad, was actually the superintendent of education for the state. That's quite something.
It is, yeah. Quite the background.
And Robert himself, he was educated in New York, then went on to serve as an officer, a helicopter gunship pilot in Vietnam. So a pretty diverse background before he even got into the finance world.
It truly is. And Kiyosaki's journey after the war really set the stage for his later work. In 1977, he founded a company that actually brought the first nylon and Velcro surfer wallets to market.
Really? Those wallets?
Yeah. And he grew it into a multi-million-dollar global business. Later, he co-founded an international education company teaching business and investing across, I think, 7 countries. He actually managed to retire at just 47.
40.
Right. But his passion for teaching, it seemed, was really fueled by his concern for what he saw as the growing gap between the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
That pulled him back in. And this led him to create the cash flow board game. It was specifically designed to teach those financial principles that traditionally maybe only the rich understood. His message is very direct, almost blunt. Take responsibility for your finances or take orders all your life. You're either a master of money or a slave to it.
Wow. Strong words.
Yeah.
And then we have his key co-author, Sharon Lecter. She's a CPA, a mother of 3, with a, seriously impressive professional background herself. She started her career at what was then a Big 8 accounting firm, so, one of the top global accounting powerhouses of its time. She also served as a CFO in the computer industry and even founded a regional women's magazine. That's quite a breadth of experience.
Absolutely. And her journey to co-authoring this book, if we sort of connect the dots, really stemmed from a personal realization about, the shortcomings of traditional education. You see, Sharon's focus shifted sharply towards financial literacy after one of her own kids became deeply disillusioned with school. He was protesting, saying things like, "Why should I put time into studying subjects I will never use in real life?"
I think a lot of parents can relate to that sentiment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that experience, it spurred her to actively search for programs that could genuinely teach kids about financial matters. That search ultimately led her to Kiyosaki's cash flow game, and that ignited their collaboration. They were driven by this shared vision for guiding children's education in what they saw as a rapidly changing world.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad really centers on this compelling narrative of these two father figures. Robert's biological father, his poor dad, advocated that conventional path many of us probably heard growing up. Study hard, get good grades, find a high-paying job with great benefits. The goal was a secure career, working for a corporation, striving to be a smart person in that traditional sense. It feels safe, familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Safe and familiar.
Yeah.
But then you have Mike's father, the rich dad. Now, despite never finishing 8th grade, he offered an entirely different playbook. He urged Robert to own the corporation, to know how to hire smart people, and maybe most importantly, to understand how money works and learn how to have it work for me. His famous declaration was simply, "Money is power." And this is the central paradox the book explores. Both men were successful, right? Both earned good incomes. Yet, Kiyosaki observes that one, his poor dad, struggled financially throughout his life, ultimately leaving behind bills, while the other, the rich dad, became one of Hawaii's wealthiest men, leaving millions to his family and charities.
That's a stark difference.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that difference in outcomes, despite, similar work ethics, that's what the book truly tries to unpack.
So it becomes clear the book isn't just telling a story, it's kind of presenting itself as a mission, right? To reveal the rules of money that the rich play by rules often learned at home, not in school.
Precisely. That's the core argument. Traditional schooling, it excels at teaching scholastic and professional skills. It prepares you, essentially, to work for money. But Kiyosaki argues it critically misses teaching financial skills. That is, how to have money work for you. And this lack of financial literacy, he contends, is why so many highly educated professionals, people we'd consider successful, still struggle financially. They often feel trapped in what he vividly terms the rat race.
Ugh, the rat race. That phrase really resonates, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So many people feel that way. How does Rich Dad suggest we even start breaking free from that cycle? It seems like the first core lesson is incredibly fundamental. Understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. How does getting that right shift our thinking about our daily financial choices?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting and deceptively simple. Rich Dad's definition is disarmingly direct. He says, assets put money in your pocket, period. And conversely, liabilities take money out of your pocket.
Simple enough.
Seems simple, right? But this distinction, while it sounds basic, is actually profound. Because most people, particularly the middle class, often acquire things they think are assets, but by this definition are actually liabilities. Kiyosaki illustrates this by showing the cash flow patterns. A poor person has income from a job, and that income goes straight out to expenses, food, rent, etc. Pretty straightforward. A middle-class person also has income from a job, but their expenses often include significant liabilities, things like a mortgage, car loans, credit card debt. These take money out. In stark contrast, a wealthy person, according to Rich Dad, primarily focuses on acquiring assets, things like stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate, intellectual property. These things put money in their pocket. Liabilities are kept minimal.
Okay, that's a powerful challenge to conventional wisdom. But, for many people, the idea of their home not being an asset, that might feel counterintuitive, maybe even a little scary. How does Kiyosaki address that?
Right, that's a big one. He clarifies that for most people, their primary residence is indeed a liability, financially speaking. Think about it. Mortgage payments, property taxes, maintenance, insurance, all these things take money out of your pocket month after month.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense when you put it that way.
Now, he's not saying don't own a home. He's challenging the financial classification of it in your overall strategy. Kiyosaki himself says he would only ever buy a bigger, more luxurious house after he had acquired enough income-generating assets to cover all its costs without touching his active income from, say, his job or main business.
So assets first, then the bigger house paid for by those assets.
Exactly. It forces you to prioritize building that cash flow engine first rather than acquiring liabilities that drain your cash flow. It's about prioritizing assets over perceived status symbols.
This clear distinction between assets and liabilities, it really reframes how we might think about financial independence and wealth, which, let's face it, is something many of us aspire to.
It absolutely does. And the book introduces Buckminster Fuller's definition of wealth, which I find incredibly insightful. Fuller defined wealth as a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward. Or if I stopped working today, how long could I survive?
That's a different way of looking at it, not just net worth.
Exactly. It's not about how much stuff you own or your net worth filled with depreciating, junk, as Kiyosaki might call it. It's purely about the consistent cash flow generated by your assets. So the goal then, according to Rich Dad, is to build an asset column that produces enough passive income to cover all your monthly expenses. That makes you financially independent from your job. Once you've achieved that, any excess cash flow gets reinvested back into the asset column. That allows it to grow even larger, generate even more income. This, he says, is the true path to growing richer, having money work for you, not the other way around.
Okay, so beyond these tangible definitions and strategies, the book delves pretty deeply into mindset, right? And the psychological obstacles that often prevent people from achieving this kind of wealth. Like that simple yet profound example you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The power of asking a question versus making a statement.
Yes. This is fascinating. Rich Dad apparently absolutely forbade saying the phrase, "I can't afford it." Instead, he insisted they ask, "How can I afford it?"
Just changing the word.
Just changing the words. But think about the difference in impact. One phrase, "I can't," it instantly shuts down your brain, right? It closes off possibilities. The other, "How can I?" It forces your brain to actually work, to get creative, to find solutions. He viewed automatically saying, "I can't afford it," as a sign of, well, mental laziness. And this kind of proactive, inquisitive thinking is central to overcoming the common hurdles that derail most people financially.
It really sounds like a lot of this comes down to how you frame challenges and manage your internal dialogue, doesn't it?
It's almost everything. Take, for instance, overcoming the fear of losing money. Everyone has this fear, even the rich, Kiyosaki says. The distinction isn't the absence of fear, but how it's handled. Rich Dad encouraged thinking like a, quote, Texan, embracing the possibility of failure, maybe even being inspired by it, rather than letting it paralyze you. He famously said, "Failure inspires winners, and failure defeats losers."
Interesting perspective. Failure as inspiration.
Yeah. Playing it safe all the time, like with a perfectly balanced portfolio, he argued, often means you're playing not to lose, rather than playing to win big. To build significant wealth, sometimes you need focused courage, even if it feels unbalanced initially.
Okay. And then there are those people who always seem to find a reason not to do something, right? Focusing only on the negatives, the potential problems.
Yeah. Right, that's battling cynicism. Kiyosaki calls this the chicken little syndrome. The sky is always falling. Doubt and fear, he says, often create cynics. And cynics tend to criticize rather than analyze. They end up missing opportunities that might be right in front of them. He gives the example of real estate investing. The common objection is, I don't want to fix toilets.
Heard that one before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that objection often blinds people to the simple solution. Hire a property manager. As Rich Dad put it, cynics criticize and winners analyze. It's about looking past the immediate hurdle to find a workable solution.
I can definitely relate to being busy, but maybe not always productive, especially with tasks I'd rather avoid, like sorting out finances sometimes.
Yeah.
How does the book suggest we tackle that kind of financial laziness?
Ah, yes, curing laziness. Which he clarifies isn't about actually being lazy, but often about being busy doing things to avoid what's important. Many people are incredibly busy, but they remain unproductive with their finances. They use constant activity sometimes as a way to avoid facing important financial realities or decisions. The cure, Rich Dad suggested, was, interestingly, a little greed.
Greed. That sounds controversial.
Well, he frames it as embracing a healthy desire for something better. Asking yourself, what's in it for me? Not in a selfish way, but as a motivator for action. It's about channeling that natural desire for a better life, for nice things, into productive financial habits, rather than letting guilt or societal norms suppress that ambition.
Okay, I see the distinction. Using desire as fuel. And what about habits? Bad habits are easy to fall into financially.
Absolutely. This leads to developing good habits, specifically the pay yourself first principle. Most people, what do? They earn money, pay taxes, pay their bills, pay everyone else, and then they hope there's something left over to save or invest for themselves. Usually, there isn't much. Rich Dad taught the exact opposite. Pay yourself first, meaning allocate money to your asset column, your investments, before you pay your bills. Now, this creates pressure, right? You have to pay your bills. So this pressure forces you to find other ways to generate income or manage expenses. It makes you, as he puts it, smarter and more active when it comes to money. It forces innovation.
That takes discipline. And maybe a bit of courage when those bills are looming.
It definitely does. And the last big mental hurdle he talks about is avoiding arrogance. He defines arrogance as ego plus ignorance. Arrogant people tend to believe that what they don't know isn't important. This obviously hinders learning and growth. A truly intelligent person, Rich Dad believed, welcomes new ideas, listens more than they talk, and is constantly educating themselves. He even says, if you learn something new, you are then required to make mistakes in order to fully understand what you have learned. Arrogance prevents that learning through action.
Okay, so shifting our focus now towards putting this all into practice. Armed with these lessons, this mindset shift, how do we actually start building that crucial asset column? What are some immediate actionable steps to awaken our financial genius, as the book calls it?
Right, moving from theory to action. One of the most critical steps Kiyosaki champions is minding your own business.
Okay.
Now, this isn't about necessarily quitting your job right away. That's a common misconception. It's about understanding that your profession, what you do for money, your job is distinct from your business. Your business, in this context, is actively building your asset column.
Ah, okay. Profession versus business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He famously uses Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. Kroc always maintained his business wasn't actually hamburgers.
Yeah.
It was real estate,
Yeah.
the land under the franchises.
Interesting. Never thought of it that way.
Right. So the core advice is keep your daytime job, especially initially, used to pay the bills. But simultaneously, focus your energy and extra resources on acquiring income-generating assets. This is where the idea of side hustles really comes into play, or building streams of passive income. These assets could be businesses that don't require your physical presence, stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate, maybe notes you hold, or even royalties from intellectual property like books or music. And the crucial rule here is, once a dollar goes into your asset column, never let it come out. Treat it like an employee. It's there to work for you. 247, generating more income.
That distinction between profession and business is incredibly powerful. Minding your own business, your asset column, and a significant tool the rich utilize, which many of us might not fully understand or have access to easily, is the corporation. How does that play into building wealth according to Rich Dad?
Yes, the corporation is highlighted as a major tool. Why? Well, primarily because corporations offer significant tax advantages and, importantly, protection from lawsuits that individuals simply don't have. Think about the tax flow. Individuals typically earn income, then they get taxed on that income, and then they get to spend what's left. Corporations, however, can operate differently. They can earn income, then spend money on legitimate business expenses, which can include things that might seem like luxuries, like business travel, if properly structured, and then they are taxed only on the profit that remains.
So earn, spend, then tax versus earn, tax, then spend.
Exactly. It's described as one of the biggest legal tax loopholes, the rich leverage effectively. Plus, the structure offers protection. If the business is sued, your personal assets held outside the corporation are generally protected. This liability protection and tax efficiency is presented as a major secret of how the wealthy play the financial game differently.
Okay. So beyond these structural tools like corporations, what are some of the most impactful, actionable steps we can take? Maybe drawing from those 10 steps the book outlines to awaken financial genius. What really stands out?
Absolutely. Those 10 steps are quite action-oriented. Let's distill a few really powerful ones. First, have a reason greater than reality. This goes beyond just wanting more money. It's about connecting to a deep emotional want, or maybe a don't want, something really powerful that drives you through the inevitable challenges. Kiyosaki often talked about his own drive to achieve financial freedom for his family, to break a cycle.
So find your why.
Find your deep why, exactly. Secondly, invest first in education. Your mind is truly your greatest asset. Why? Because it's what allows you to see and seize opportunities others miss. Continuously learn, attend seminars, read books, listen to audio programs. Kiyosaki credits a $385 real estate course he took early on with eventually making him millions because it gave him a formula.
So education isn't an expense, it's an investment.
Precisely. And another one I really like is assets buy luxuries. This flips the script on how most people approach spending on non-essentials. Instead of going into debt for that fancy car or vacation, use your desire for those nice things as motivation to invest in assets. Then, use the income generated from those assets to pay for the luxuries. It forces a much more financially disciplined approach while still acknowledging our desires.
I like that. It uses desire constructively. Now, for someone listening who's maybe just starting out or perhaps feeling a little overwhelmed or stuck, what are some concrete, immediate to-dos, things they can do this week to shift from just learning to actually doing?
Great question. Let's get super practical. Here are a few direct action points from the book's advice. First, stop doing what's not working. Sounds simple, maybe obvious, but it requires an honest look at your current financial actions. Are they getting you closer to your goals? If not, you need the courage to change course, analyze and adapt.
Assess and adjust.
Exactly. Second, take action. The world is full of people who think, plan, read books, but never actually execute. Don't just learn, implement. Even small steps, taken consistently, compound over time. Start somewhere, and a particularly relevant one, especially for those interested in real estate or maybe finding business opportunities. Make lots of offers. Particularly in real estate, the advice is to make many low offers, always with escape clauses so you're protected. As Kiyosaki points out, you don't truly know what the right price is until you have a second party who's actually willing to negotiate with you.
Be proactive. Put yourself out there.
Yes, it's about being proactive, actively seeking out opportunities, rather than just passively waiting for the perfect deal to land in your lap. Action always beats inaction.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It really does challenge so much conventional wisdom about money, work, and success. It's clearly not just about earning more money, but fundamentally about how you think about money and how you manage the money you already have or could generate.
Absolutely. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the core message, I think, is that financial intelligence isn't measured solely by the number in your bank account. It's really about what's going on in your head, your mindset, your knowledge, your habits. It's presented as a continuous journey of learning, of adapting, and crucially, of making conscious choices with every single dollar that passes through your hands. Your financial future, and perhaps that of your children too, is profoundly shaped by these daily decisions and the underlying mindset you choose to cultivate.
So, as we wrap up, what really stands out to you, the listener, from today's discussion? Maybe consider Robert Kiyosaki's powerful statement that we touched on. Money is only an idea. If you want more money, simply change your thinking. How might shifting your mindset based on some of these ideas fundamentally alter your financial path, starting perhaps as soon as today?